Hey everybody, I'm JJ Johnson. You're watching Reality Survival. So this is going to be, hopefully it'll be, a new series of videos that I'll occasionally do whenever I get questions in the comment section that are probably a little long for typing out and stuff like that. So, and I'll probably call these like survival and prepping questions of the week or something like that. Anyway, Lisa asked a question and it's got several kind of big things in it. So I wanted to try to address those in this video real quick. And I'll just read off what her comment was, and then we'll go into each one and kind of unpack each one individually. So she says, hi there, just a couple of questions. First, I appreciate your videos. There are a lot of good info, but not a lot of scare tactics. She says, we don't have a gun because I have a daycare at home and 3 babies, all under 2, that I watch 24/7, 4 to 5 days a week. Let me first say, Lisa, I respect what you do, and I couldn't do it myself. My wife has done it for years, though. Anyway, plus she's got a daughter who is 19. She says, I'm not sure about having a gun here. It makes me nervous. What else could you suggest for protection? And also, there's no way that I could bug out myself with these babies. Do you have any ideas? What would you do if it was bad, capital letters, but couldn't leave your home? We're in a smaller rural community, but not tiny, about 12,000 people. Okay, so there's a lot of good stuff here to talk about. The first thing is that, like I said, my wife has run a daycare out of our home for many, many years, and I have lots and lots of guns. However, both of us are very diligent about keeping the guns locked up in the safes. Okay? So my first suggestion for you about this first part is that, and again, this is just my opinion. I understand if you're not comfortable with firearms, and I'll give you some options here in just a minute. My first suggestion is that you should get some training on firearms. Your concern, from what you told me in your comment, is that you're nervous about them, and I suspect that you're probably nervous about them because you don't have a lot of hands-on experience with firearms, so you don't know how they function mechanically, how they work, and some of the basics on how to lock them up and all that kind of stuff. If you have, what I do is I have 2 different types of home safes. You can see one right here in the background. This is for pistols, and then I have other larger safes for rifles and shotguns and stuff like that. Now what I do is I keep the keys to my larger safe locked up in the smaller safe, and that way I always know where the keys are for that one, and nobody else can get into it because I'm the only one, myself and my wife are the only ones that know the combination to that safe. So it's sort of a double blind deal. Like, there's no way that the kids are going to be able to get access to the guns, and I am very diligent about just putting them away when I'm through with them. You know what I mean? It's just something that you have to do. I'm just going to go into just a little bit on what I believe is every citizen's responsibility to be armed. And it's not really, for me, it's not just because we need to be able to fight a tyrannical government and all that kind of stuff, although that is important. We have the reason the Second Amendment was put in there as a bigger part of just fighting the tyranny is also fighting from foreign invasion. When the Constitution was written and the Bill of Rights was written, foreign invasion was the number one thing on their list that they were worried about. Obviously, self-defense is huge. Defense against our own government is also huge. And being able to defend, your own community and provide for your own food and everything. So I think that if you educate yourself on firearms, then you are probably going to become more comfortable with them in your home. And if you develop a strategy for locking them up and keeping them locked up, in a safe place, in a manner of which I spoke earlier, then you'll probably eliminate some of that nervousness. And that is my number one suggestion to you, okay? And the reason I suggest that is because the next thing that I'm going to talk to you about is the non-lethal options. And there are non-lethal options out there that are decent, but they're not great. A firearm is the best way to defend yourself no matter what. Okay, so you're really shortchanging yourself by taking firearms off the table. Is all I'm going to say there. But I do understand, and I do respect your opinion about it, because until my wife saw the system that we set up, until she got used to it, until she saw that I was diligent with my firearms and all that kind of stuff, keeping them locked up and everything, she was nervous about it as well. And it's something that she's gotten used to, and she doesn't have any issues with now. So I would encourage you to try to get over it. But anyway, on to the next part is not sure about having one. It makes me nervous. What else would you suggest for protection? Okay, so I'm going to go through a range of things, and I think on the video that you commented on, it was the first 5 big purchases. So I've already covered the firearms thing. We'll go to the next thing, and that is, I'm going to show you a couple of different options here. This is pepper spray, and I just got this from Gall's. It's 10% pepper spray, and it's pretty good stuff. Now, this is a pretty large size. It's 3 ounces, and I think this would do fine for home defense. Now, I might recommend that you get a newer style, which is called a gel style, and it's not aerosolized. This is aerosolized, if that's a word. And the problem with using this for home defense is that once you spray it in your home, you could end up infecting other people. And especially babies and young kids are going to be very susceptible to this, and it could be really, really irritating to them. And if they have any kind of breathing disorder or anything like that, then that could also be a problem. So I'm not a big fan of this for home defense, but it is one particular option. Like I said, the gel version, the gel spray would be better because it doesn't get into the air conditioning and heating system and all that kind of stuff like the aerosolized stuff would. So that is an option. Now, and same thing goes with this. You still have to lock this up. You can't let kids have access to this stuff. So you still run into the same issue. A smaller version that you could get is like this. This is a little bit smaller can, and let's see what. Maybe it's 1 or 2 ounces. I'm not sure. I'm not seeing what it is on it. It says 50 grams. It's not measured out in ounces. This is Saber Red. But anyway, that's another smaller option. And again, it's got to be locked up. So then they come down to, they've got these little keychain sized ones, that you can have, that you can carry in your keychain or in your purse or whatever, and that's definitely like an ounce or half an ounce or something like that. And this one's from Guard Dog. And, these are fine as a deterrent or whatever, but if somebody's determined to break into your house, this is not going to be a major factor in stopping them, something like this. So it's just not a great option, but it is one of the options that are out there. Now, this is another option here. This is a ViperTech stun gun, and these are quite effective as long as they don't have a lot of clothing on and that kind of thing. But even still with clothing on, it's fairly effective. The problem with this is you're going to have to get within arm's reach of these people. You know what I mean? So there's always a chance they could take it away from you and incapacitate you before you're able to start using this. So again, if you're confident enough to take care of a home invader with this, you definitely have the guts to be able to use a firearm if you're trained on it correctly. I guarantee that. Anyway, and this one's got a little LED light in the end of it also, and that could be, it comes with a little sheath, and that could be carried, in a purse or something like that as well. But again, it needs to be locked up. You can't have kids, having access to this either. So, let's see here. Let me go to the next option, which is an expandable baton. Now, with all these things, I want to throw out a caveat, and I want to say make sure you check your local laws, because some areas, some states have different rules on this kind of thing. So let's see if I can get this to open without breaking my computer. That's an expandable steel baton. This one happens to be an ASP, I think 21-inch air weight baton, very similar to what many police carry. Charade also makes a pretty good version as well. Hang on, my screen just blanked on me. Charade's latest versions of of their expandable batons are a lot stronger than the previous ones, so I think those are a pretty good option as well. You might check those out. This could probably be left out, and it wouldn't be that big a deal as long as your kids aren't going to bang each other with it, so you could have quick access to it. But again, you're having to get up close and personal with the defender. You don't have any standoff distance, so it can be taken away from you. You really should be trained on how to use this as well. Next is, let's hold on that one. This one is just it's already expanded. Basically, it's a cold steel Brooklyn Shorty. It's maybe 18 inches or something like that, and it's made of plastic urethane, so it's like really hard, and it will hurt if you hit somebody with that. But again, you run into the same issues with the baton on that you're having to get up close and personal, and it could be taken from you. So then the last thing is just the good old traditional baseball bat, sticking some of those behind doors and stuff like that. But you got to watch kids getting a hold of those as well. So all in all, my recommendation to you is really seriously consider going down to your local range, taking an NRA basic firearms course, firearms safety course, something like that where you get a hold of a pistol, because a lot of these other weapons you really kind of need to have some training and some experience with, and you're cutting yourself short because you don't get any standoff distance that a firearm gives you, and they're just not as effective. Okay, so there's that. Let's see. The next part of this question was also, there's no way I could bug out. Okay, so with a mutual assistance group, basically that is talking to some of your neighbors who are somewhat like-minded and, kind of working out an agreement to be able to help each other in tough times and that kind of stuff. You got to be kind of touchy about how you do that, because some people are weird about prepping and all that kind of stuff. But you can usually feel people out very generally, just kind of asking them about disaster situations, what would they do in these situations, that kind of stuff, just kind of things to elicit some open-ended responses, and just see where they're at on it. If it seems like they're pretty like-minded, then then you could go ahead and just throw it out on the table and see what they think. Take your time and think about how to approach that, though. The second thing is that, like I said, the further away you are from the big city centers, the better off you are. So if you're in a more rural community of 12,000 people, that is a good thing for you, because to me, that's a good place to be in general. Some people will say, well, if you're 200 miles away from your next neighbor, then that's the best place you could be. I tend to disagree with that, because I think that having some people as in an area as a support network is really a positive and strong thing, for you. Now, let's say it does get bad in your community, like you were talking about. If that's the case, there are some things that you can do. Number one, and I've got some articles both on non-lethal weapons and on 25 things to improve your home security on my website at realitysurvival.com. So you can check that out if you want. I'll just run through a few of the top things that run off the top of my head. Number one is whether or not you can afford a home alarm system. If you can afford one, great. If you can't, then definitely look at getting some signs. If you have dogs, that is a good thing. Make sure you put signs up, beware of dog, dogs bite, whatever the case may be. Those kinds of things are great deterrents for people, and actually physically having dogs, and more specifically dogs that have been trained as home guarding dogs, or self-defense dogs, that is also a great investment of money as well. And dogs that have been trained well can still be great with kids, depending on different kinds of breeds and stuff like that. So that's not necessarily a factor in your daycare. I mean, you might be able to keep them outside. Who knows? It just depends on your situation. The next thing is there are reinforcements. Door buddy, I think is what they're called. I'm not sure. I'll try to put some links to the specific thing that I'm talking about on Amazon below. But it's basically a steel reinforcement that you can put on your doors in the door jamb so that it makes your doors very difficult to kick in. That is a great way to improve security at your house. Having shrubbery and stuff like that, planted in such a way that it makes it difficult to crawl in through windows. So like if the shrubs have like thorns on them and stuff, then that is good. You also do want to kind of clear some of the shrubbery away from your front door and have lights out at your door. Both of your doors, front and back door and garage door, you should have security motion lights on there. That is going to help. And let's see, if it came to worse, like we're talking about, it's getting really bad, then you could also order sandbags, just like for sandbags for flooding, but you could put those inside your home on like the walls and stuff like that. At least maybe 3 or 4 feet high, and that way if you have to deal with drive-by shootings or any of that kind of gang violence stuff that you see in movies and stuff but you never actually have to deal with yourself, then you could everybody can hit the deck and you've got a layer or two of sandbags to protect you. Or maybe you just locate that in certain strategic areas of the house, because bullets will go through homes, right? Like, a typical 9mm can shoot from one side of the house straight through to the other side. So if you are going to stay in place in a really bad grid down situation, and you don't want to go anywhere else, then fortifying your house with sandbags could be a potential option for you. And you can order them in bulk right now fairly cheaply, and then just dig up, use dirt in your backyard or whatever the case may be, or sand from the sandbox, or whatever. So that's a potential option as well. Now, the other thing that I would say is 2 things, and I'll wrap this up. Number one, most disasters are going to be a regionalized disaster, right? It's a very, very low possibility that there's going to be a grid down, nationwide kind of disaster. So my first suggestion for you would be look to family members and friends who live outside of your region. And maybe you can't bug out and go to the woods, bug out bag and that kind of thing, trekking over multiple miles with a backpack and babies. I get that. But you could potentially load up a bunch of stuff into the car and take them to your aunt's or to your grandmother's or to whoever's house in some other region of the country, because it's far more likely that you're going to have a regionalized disaster that could cause you to have to move from your home than not. Now, I don't know what region you live in. I don't know if you live in hurricane zone or ice storms, or I'm not really sure what your area is, but pretty much all areas have some sort of disaster, things that can happen to them that may cause people to have to move out of their area temporarily. So forest fires is a prime example. There could be situations in which you have to leave. And so I would not want you to put all your eggs in one basket and think, I'm going to stay here no matter what. Because, and my plan is like 80% I'm going to stay here. But there's that I have to leave, and I recognize that. So the last thing is that bugging out with bug out bags on your backpack is probably very implausible with babies, but you could do like a bug out loadout system where if your husband or you have a truck, you could put the equipment that you need in tubs and stuff like that, and you could basically do family camping, and that might be a better option to plan for as well than just doing a bug out bag on your back and kind of taking off. Because you could put cots in there, you could put a big style tent where you've got all the babies in with you. You could even take some pack and plays and stuff like that and go out to the national forest somewhere, okay? So, and maybe you've only got to be there for a week or two because, like I said, it's probably a regionalized small disaster is what's going to be more likely. Now, I understand that you're not going to be able to stay out there for some extended period of time, but I've taken my kids camping, when they were as young as I think 11 or 12 weeks, so You can take them out there. You just have to be more cognizant of where they're playing, what they're doing, the sanitation aspect of it, and keeping sand and dirt and stuff out of their eyes. And it's a little bit more of a pain. I agree, but it is a possibility. So anyway, that is my take. I've taken way too much time to answer this question, but I'm just trying to give you some additional options there, and I hope it has worked out for you. Anyway, guys, as always, I definitely appreciate when you click the thumbs up button, when you share it with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And don't forget to live the 6 Ps. Proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. Stay safe, guys.